What's up, vlog cabin lifers? Here working on our BX2200 Kubota. Gonna change out some rear axle seals, and while we're at it, change out the bearings too. What I'm having an issue with is a severe axle leak. Take a look. Seems like now the temperatures, it's late December, so the temperatures have dropped, so it seems like it's a lot worse. Got this cardboard under here, it's saturated. So I'm gonna put my new set of R4 tires on, but before I do that, I want to fix that leak. And you can see all the dirt and grime that's built up on the inside rim. The right side doesn't seem to be as bad, but we'll do that at the same time. So, seen some videos, some information on the internet, some of the tractor webs. Haven't seen any really good videos, so we'll make a video. Hopefully it'll help. Alright, so we're gonna get started. Jack this baby up. And take the wheels off and get started. Alright, so I got it jacked up. I just lifted it up under the rear pin attachment. Would have been nice not to have my rear attachment on here, but in order to save time, I just offset the jack a little bit and jacked it up from there. So yeah, it is what it is. So after I get the tires off, put some jack stands under there for safety, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I got the wheels off here. Just wanted to show you the mess that's there on this wheel. In the inside, it's clearly there was a leak. Even from parking, it's been run down the hub and then down the tire. Huge puddle here. I'll show you that a little bit later, what I did. Kind of diagnose where it was coming from. This side, not so bad. Just dirty. And the hub's relatively dry. Alright, so what I did here, spray it with brake cleaner, clean it up, and it's clear that it's coming from underneath. It's not coming from in here, it's not coming around the shaft. That's dry. It's coming from this part of the seal. That's where the oil's coming from. Then it leaks down underneath and drips everywhere else. Makes a hell of a mess. So we're gonna take this out, and then we'll take the shaft out, replace the bearing, check everything out, do that on both sides while we're into it this far. Alright, so we'll be back. Okay, so we got it up on jack stands here, and we're gonna drain the hydrostatic transmission fluid oil from the drain plug with the 17mm wrench. And you'll see what's left in it. It's already below the low point on the dipstick, so interesting to see what's left. Okay, got the plug out, and it's draining. One thing I noticed, there was a bunch of metal shards that came down. I hope that's just from the machining process, and they never drained this, but there was a bunch of metal shards that came and dropped down. So I know I never have to drain it and replace it because it's always leaking and cylinders are leaking here and there, so I'm never draining it, I'm just always adding it. But that's interesting. That's a good idea. Probably to just drain it once in a while. And it looks like it's gonna overflow my container here, so I'm gonna put the plug back in real quick before it overflows. Okay, so I emptied this container, and here's the pieces I saw. It almost looks like little pieces from tapped holes, not like ground gears or anything, which I'm guessing that's a better sign. That's just interesting to me because a little on the history of this tractor, I believe I'm the third owner. Previous owner said he did some meticulous service on it, but it's hard to believe that was never the low point on the transmission was never opened, unless that's just some more pieces that have been flushed out over the years. But this tractor has, what is it? It's 1,300, 1,382 hours on it. So lots of hours on there. I can't believe if this thing was serviced that would come out. That's surprising to me. But she still runs, so I don't know. I'm gonna drain some more out and see what happens. Alright, so I'm on my third container like this, and I'm gonna open the dipstick over here. And you can definitely see it picks up when I remove the dipstick. Remove that vacuum and help it drain faster. So now that I've got a couple here, it's gonna go a little faster. Keep doing this. Okay, so we're on the end of the drainage here. We got about 4 of those containers, about, I don't know, half a gallon, 3/4 of a gallon, cut off gallon container. So we probably have about 4 of those, and at least half spilled all over the floor here. Big mess. Probably could have used a bigger container and just drained it into one, but just kind of going on the fly here. Plus, to mention, it was already below the low point on the dipstick, so I forget what the total quantity is, but it is what it is. It's drained. Alright. One thing I noticed before we take this all apart is the axles have a little bit of free play, which is probably normal. It's about the same on both sides. This one has a little bit too. So that should be okay. Okay, let's get to taking the seal out. Part of the nice part of getting the parts, the new parts, before you take the old parts out is kind of see how they go together. So we're just gonna pry along this outer edge here and see what happens. We're gonna use a putty knife and a hammer and see what happens here. Actually, it's coming out pretty easy without even using a hammer. Putty knife, kind of twist it a little bit, probably get a little bit of oil, and there it is. And that's where it was leaking. So, get a rag, plenty of rags and lots of cardboard or something to catch all this grease and oil coming off of it. Looks pretty clean. So next we'll get our snap ring pliers, and there's a pretty big snap ring inside there. Take that out, and it should slide out with the bearing on, and see what happens from there. Okay, we got the outer snap ring out with our cheap Harbor Freight snap ring pliers. This would probably be a good time to have a nice set of snap ring pliers, because I ended up having to use the putty knife and screwdriver to kind of work it out, because these just did not hold on the way they should to get that snap ring out. So we got it out regardless, so it is what it is. Now we should be able to pull the bearing out. There it is. And shaft. That's it. And to remove the bearing, there's another snap ring on that side of the bearing. Remove that and then we'll replace the bearing. I don't think the bearing's probably fine, but you know what? For 12, 13 bucks, we're in it this far, let's replace it. And it's done. Alright, so that's what it looks like inside there. It's got a little bit of a groove there to seal. Clean that out real good before we put it all back together. Looks good. See down inside there. Alright, good deal. Take that snap ring off. Place the bearing. Put this one back together. Alright, so we got the inner snap ring removed and the bearing slid off. It was a little snug, but a little gentle persuasion. Slid right off of its shaft there. It's not too bad. Looks like it's just an NSK bearing. It's a 6007. Probably nothing special about it, but I didn't know what size it was, so I just ordered it right from Kubota, the Messick dealer nearby. Got that. So that comes off, and then you gotta remember to take this off and then put it back in place. After you take the seal off, put everything back. That's a little snug because that's where it's actually sealing when it's all assembled. So when we put everything back together, put the new seal on, put a little oil on it. I'll show you then, so you don't ruin the new seal. Put that down, put the new the big snap ring in, put the bearing on, so get that seated, and the other snap ring. We'll get that all back together. We'll clean this up, put it all back together. We'll do the other side, and we'll put everything back together. Alright, so this is the right side that wasn't all leaking. I'm gonna do it anyway since we're already tearing everything apart, draining all the fluids. I kind of wiped all the dirt off, sprayed it down with some carb cleaner. I guess you use brake fluid or anything. Kind of rinse it off, flashes off quick. I wouldn't use it on new seals, but since I'm using it on these old seals, I'm gonna tear them off anyway. So again, use the putty knife. Get it started. It comes right out. This one actually seems to be in there a lot better, which makes sense because it's actually not leaking. And the other side almost came out too easy. Hate to disrupt it, but we're already in it, so I'm just gonna do it. There it is. Seal now. Try to get that snap ring. Alright, so now I got all the parts out here for the axles and the snap rings and the bearings and the seals. Just wanted to go over I think it's very well worth your while to invest in or borrow a nice set of snap ring pliers. I ended up busting 2 of the sets here for the cheap Harbor Freight for these heavy snap rings. This one actually, I had to use screwdrivers and all kinds of clever things to get this one out. So I went and borrowed a friend's nice set here. Should work much better getting these snap rings in and out. I guess you gotta have the right tools for this job. But anyways, got the bearing off of this shaft here. That one slid right off. That one slid right off. That was the left side, which was the one that was leaking. Right side was a little more challenging, so I applied a little bit of heat using propane torch. Nothing special, just to the bearing. Just did that for 30 seconds or so, evenly around it, and then turn it around and tapped it on something hard there on my vise here. Tapped it with a little bit of pressure on the bearing, pulled it down, and it came right off. So that's done now. So probably just clean up these surfaces here. Clean up the surface here where the seal is. I use some real fine steel wool just to get any kind of little corrosion off. So the seal makes a good tight seal. Alright, so clean this up and then start putting it back together. Alright, so just wanted to go over these bearings I took out. Left side, which was the side that was leaking, which really has nothing to do with the seal and leaking. The bearing itself didn't seem to be too bad. Probably could have reused that one. But the right side, it's hard to tell from the video, but I don't know if it's just a little dirt in there, but it does have a little bit of a, almost like a flat spot. So, for the price, it's probably a good idea to just replace them now anyways when I have this apart to this point. Replace the seals, replace the bearings. So, if you ever have to replace the bearings, you're going to have to replace the seals anyway, so might as well do it all together. Alright? Alright, for that snap ring that was all bent out of shape, it's good to use a flat plate of steel or something to take a heavy blow. Nice little sledgehammer, and just kind of hit the high spots. This was the one that was good. This is the one that was bent out. Came out pretty nice. So had this piece of steel drop laying around for my other project to put in the tooth bar on my bucket. Might have seen that in one of my other videos, but just hitting the high spots and kind of working it from side to side, kind of slowly flattening it out. So that should be good. That'll go in there nice and easy now. Alright, so we cleaned up the shaft diameter where this bearing is and where the seal rides. You can just barely see a little bit of wear marks there. Wanted to remove most of them. This one cleaned up a little bit more. So I used real fine steel wool just for a little bit, and then this sandpaper, which it's not really sandpaper, it's what's it called here? This is the yeah, what the heck is the name of that? Emery cloth. That's it. Emery cloth. Real fine. It kind of has like a fibrous mesh backing, and just kind of run that around there just to remove a little bit of the wear marks, just to clean it up. You don't want to really remove any material. You don't want to change that diameter. That'll screw things up for you. So did that, cleaned them up, wipe them down, and probably set these outside. I don't know if it's going to make much difference, or throw them in the freezer. Chill the shafts, make them a little smaller in diameter. The bearings shouldn't be a press fit, but it just seems that they're just tight. It's going to make it a little easier. Luckily it's winter time, it's cold out. Put these things outside or in the freezer. And then the bearings I'm going to put on top of my wood stove and let them warm up a little bit. I want to put the flame to them. That might distort the races and screw things up on the new ones, so I'm going to use that to get the old ones off. So put the shafts in something cold and the bearings on something warm. You can get bearing heaters and that sort of thing, but I'm going to go old school and just throw it on my wood stove. Alright, we'll be back. Okay, well, I'm waiting for the bearings to warm up and shaft to cool down. Figured I'll clean up the housing, get that all cleaned up and ready. I'm gonna just run this emery cloth just real lightly in here, remove any high spots that may have come up from removing the snap rings, or don't want to remove too much. And this is aluminum, so again, we're gonna just clean it up, not take any material away, just kind of rubbing off the high spots. So, wipe it out with a rag. Good. See down in there. I'll do that for the other side and see what's next. Alright, so now we're going to reassemble the shafts. Got this one here. What I did was I put a little hydro lube around the inside of the seal and slid it down over the shaft. Just kind of rotated it a little bit to get it down over this diameter here. And then put our large snap ring. Next would be the bearing, and then finally locking the bearing in with the small ring. So let me go grab one of the bearings. Should be nice and hot, and see how that goes. Alright, so this one, it just dropped right on. Let me do that again. Of course it's probably cooling off now. Won't be able to get it off. Man, that's hot. Anyways, it just dropped right down, as you can see. And there it is. There it is. See if I can get that off. I can't even get that off. It probably set up already. Try tapping that down with some aluminum here. This is aluminum. There it goes. Best thing would be to have a pipe just the right size to fit on the inner race. You never want to hit just the outer race. Or you could take an old bearing and use that, but there's just enough shoulder here that it would probably be too tight and get jammed on, and then that would be a bitch to get off. So I'll try to shoot the next one here and just drop it right on and show you how easy it is once you heat them up a little bit. Alright, next thing we're going to do is put this small snap ring on, which with the right snap ring pliers now should be a breeze. Alright, so here's the other seal. Got some oil on it. Just gonna slowly work this down. There, get that over. Put the other snap ring on. Another big one. There, and then let's go get the bearing. Like I said, nothing special. Just your average wood heating stove and a bearing. And some aluminum. So let's grab it by the aluminum here. This baby's pretty hot, so lay this down, let you down. Alright, so back down in the workshop here. We'll just dribble a little bit of oil down in here. Ooh, that's warm. Don't want to chill it too much. Put a little bit on the shaft here. And see what happens here. Boom, right down. Just like that. Hopefully you caught that. Just went right down. Just went right down. That's awesome. No tapping required. So, put this baby on. See if I can do it while holding the camera here. Okay, let's go a little bit more. It's amazing how easy things are when you have the right tools. Boom, just like that. So I would say putting the shaft in the freezer definitely made a difference, along with the bearing on the stove. So I guess you could use a little convection oven for your house stove. It doesn't have to be 1,000 degrees, but a couple hundred degrees makes a difference. So that's my tidbit, my golden nugget for the day. Hopefully my wife doesn't watch this. See me putting tractor parts in her freezer. Although she knows I do worse, so whatever. But yeah, they're starting to cool off. Nice and clean. So now we're ready to put them in the tractor. Alright. Alright, it's time to put the shaft in. Okay, so we got everything here. Bearings all set. What we can do is put a little bit of hydro fluid in here. Good. Okay. Get this thing lined up. Put the splines. Boom. Just like that. Alright, that's down in. Get our high quality snap-on pliers. Actually, we're going to have to switch them to the internal way. Let's see. That. Just switching the hole changes it. And this should just go way so much easier with the right tools. I don't know how much these are, but worth their every penny of them. All right, so that's it for now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little silicone seal around here, around the seal. I read on some tractor posts that someone was able to fix a leak just by taking this off and applying a lot of schmutz sealant silicone around this and putting it back in. I guess that would fix it temporarily. To me, if it's leaking, I would think the seal is probably close to being needed repair. So I'm just replacing seals, bearings, and as an extra piece of insurance, put a little silicone around this. First, I'm going to clean it off with some alcohol, rubbing alcohol, and show you what I'm doing there next. All right, so I put a little bit of this blue RTV silicone gasket maker on it. That's all I had around. But to do it, I just put a thin film. Shouldn't need really any, but that's kind of like extra insurance. So clean this off, put the silicone on here, clean the inside of the bore there, just to wipe off any excess oil that we had. So this sealant has a good chance of adhering. And we'll go ahead, well, I check this, there's a little bit of play, just like before. That should be fine. So go ahead and just get that started. That's about it. What I'm gonna do is a piece of wood here, and we just tap in it. Nice and clean. Actually gonna let that set for 24 hours before running the tractor and filling it back up. Let that set for 24 hours. That looks good. Okay. Go ahead and do the other side. Okay. Lots of hydro fluid in here. Put it on the bearing there, outer race. Lines lined up. There you go. Just like that. High-end snap pliers here. This is the one that was all bent out of shape, so let's see how it goes in. Just as easy as the other one. Set. Okay, good. All right. Now we'll just wipe off the excess oil, clean the outside with seal, put some silicone on, and run that in just like the other side. Okay. All right, so we got our thin film of gasket maker on that edge. Just gonna work it in here. There's a little bit squishing out. That's good. Good sign. not needed, but I don't think it's gonna hurt anything. Doesn't really need much to put it on there. That's about it. Sit overnight and we'll fill it up tomorrow. See how it is. That's it. Alright, so it's been about, it's been a little over 12 hours now. And overnight I left the lamp on a little bit on each side, help set up that sealant I put on. So it should be ready to go. Putting some fluid in, but I figured it's been a while, probably at least a year since I changed the filter for the transmission, so I changed the filter, take the filter off. I always have a spare filter. So got the Kubota cartridge filter, and went over to Tractor Supply and picked up some hydro fluid. It was actually cheaper to get a 5-gallon pail than two 2-gallon jugs. The 2-gallon jugs was $23 each, so $46 for 4 gallons. This was $40 for 5 gallons, so doesn't take a rocket science to figure that one out. So I figured, from what I've been reading, it's 2.5 to 3 gallons of hydro fluid, so I would have needed at least 4 gallons. So why not get the 5 gallons and be done with it for hopefully a while. I'll have some extra. All right, so I'm gonna change the filter, change that out, and then start adding the fluid. Probably won't really videotape that. That's probably covered in a million other videos, but just figure I'd throw that in there now. While I have all the fluid out, it makes sense. Put all fresh new fluid in and a filter. Should be back up and running here shortly. All right, so I got the old filter off. Looks like last it was changed was back January 2017. There's today's date. So it's been 2 years, give or take, since the filter was changed. Probably long overdue, but I've had so many different hose leaks and other leaks with this axle leak that I've been just adding all new fluid, so I figured changing the filter wasn't as critical, but hopefully this now will reduce the amount of leaks, along with a lot of the hoses that I've replaced. So what I'll do is I like to write the date and number of hours, so when it's on there I can know when I changed it last. Keep an eye on that. All right, so just a little hint for you all. Okay, so here's another little tidbit trick that I like to do. A little extra work, but I kind of prime the new filter with about a half quart of oil, whatever. Try to do that with all my oil filters. Gets a lot of the air out, so your engine, transmission, whatever filter's for, doesn't have a lot of air, extra air in the system, and kind of primes it. So just another little tidbit. Okay, so we got our oil filter all snugged up per the directions on there, and don't forget your oil drain plug, unless you want to donate more hydraulic fluid to your garage floor. But make sure that's in. And now we're ready to fill it. Now, one thing with these older BX tractors, I don't know how the newer ones are, but the oil check stick is back here. Not too bad to get to check your level. Obviously it's empty. But the fill cap, when you fill it, is down under here, under your upper 3-point hitch arm, which is probably almost the worst place for it. How the hell are you supposed to pour fluid down under there, not get it everywhere? Even with a straight funnel coming out here, still a little bit of a trick. So what I found, they have this hook here for your top arm, which that's great, but when you're not using it, I went out and got one of these funnels, Tractor Supply. It's got this nice flexible neck to it. So what I do is just stick that down in there, and there you go. They made a hanger for us. How cool. So I hope the newer ones have a better way to fill this. I don't know, I haven't really looked at it, but this is what I have, this is what I deal with. But with this funnel, this hook they provided us for a funnel that you can also hang your 3-point hitch top arm on, works great. Pour your oil right in here. This has a nice little screen, keeps any kind of big debris out. So there it is. That's another trick. That's a free one for today. All right. I'll show you another trick I found. Natural instinct is to pour the large container like this, which you get that lurking. Well, why do that when you do it this way? It's so much easier. Pour it as fast or as slow as you need. What's nice is this bulk container has that spout that pulls out. And you can push it back in. With the cap that comes with it, you can pull it back out then. Cap that comes with it. Start that on there and keep it like that. And if you need to, pull it back out, take it off, and continue to fill. Nice and smooth. Alright, keep filling here. Alright, so filled it up, ran it, idle for a little while, circulated the hydraulic fluid, and then had to top it off again. Ran it some more, ran it, circulated the pump a little bit, and I don't see any leaks. It's a good sign. It's a good sign. So, put the new wheels on it, take it for a spin, run all the cylinders on the front end loader and the rear 3-point hitch, check the level again and top it off if necessary. Other than that, should be good to go. Alright, so there's what's left. Nice mess to clean up. So, a couple important tips. Make sure you have the right tools, and the snap ring plier, that was a big tool to have, and plenty of cardboard and rags. And if you at Tractor Supply pick up a bag of this, probably be good to have for this project and any other projects with this tractors or They seem to bleed lots of oil when you work on them, so it is what it is. So have the right tools and plenty of rags and cardboard, and let's go take a look at the final result. So you got our new sneakers on, new R4 tractor tires. Gives it the justice. One more pussyfooting around with the little turf tires. I think it looks sweet. Ready to do some serious work now. Now it looks like the workhorse that it is. Even as old as she is, still does some serious work. Here's the other tires I gotta clean up. Obviously you can tell which one was on the left side. In here. Clean all that grime and dirt off. So, alright. Let me know. Remember to like it, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts, comments, any questions. However I can help. Have fun and be safe.